There's a superoxide dismutase pathway in your body, which in short drives mitochondrial function. As you take in food and you take in oxygen, your body combines those at the mitochondria to make energy. And the body is resilient. It's designed to win. It's designed to fight and not be sick. We're not supposed to have chronic disease. Here's the amount of inflammation. Here's the amount of cellular energy. If you look at the top 15 reasons why people die in the United States, 14 are rooted in inflammation. And there's a lot of devices now to add additional hydrogen to your water, which is this miracle molecule, but essentially upregulates mitochondria, cleans out all the toxins.
Where do you think some people should start to really just try to move the needle, just to be a little healthier over time?
Our eyes are constantly surveying the environment to understand what time it is. Every hormone, every neurochemical is supposed to happen at the right time. We're supposed to get red light in the first sort of hour and a half of the day, in the last hour, an hour and a half of the day. So if you're sitting there at 9 p.m. with your laptop and your blue light and the wrong bulbs, you're telling your body it's the wrong time. And no surprise, you're waking up at 3 a.m. shuffling because your body doesn't think you went to bed. It thinks you went for a nap.
All right, great to have you on the show today. Can you explain to people what your practice is and like what you do? Because a lot of people probably have seen your Instagram and they've seen you talking about microplastics and the different things we cook with, all the way to the fluoride that might be in your water, all the way to the fluoride that might be in your toothpaste. We've seen you talking about a lot of these things. What's the practice that you have and how are you helping people?
So yeah, that's the outcome of what I've learned. And what I don't talk about online is the work that I do, right? And it was more like, I keep seeing all this stuff making people sick because we actually run a functional medicine practice through a genomic lens. So we use genetics to understand human biology, what's actually broken. And as opposed to a doctor saying, here's what your disease is called and here's a pill you need to take, like diagnose and prescribe, it's more like, why did you get sick? Something changed. You weren't born with Alzheimer's. What changed, right? So that's what I do. And many thousands of people having gone through processes like that, those are the things that I talk about on Instagram that actually got people sick, that when we resolved, fix the problem.
How about like, because man, on your page, there's so many things. Like I saw some things about like pressure cookers, etc. And it just makes me wonder about just the things that we think are safe in our home.
Even an air fryer.
That's what I wanted to ask you.
Don't attack the air fryer.
I use an air fryer every single day.
Yeah.
And it's like these, for example, with air fryers, is there anything people need to pay attention to?
Yes, so Teflon coating on the inside, right? So when you scratch Teflon, you can release literally billions of microplastics, right? Nanoparticles. There's over 9,000 chemicals that are underneath that Teflon coating. We have 144,000 chemicals added to humanity since the 1970s. We haven't changed. Our DNA is the same. We're wired like our cave people ancestors, but the context has shifted dramatically. And that's why I can talk about something every day, because this stuff is everywhere, right? So it's ubiquitous. The conveniences, we've traded off what was traditional and took time and effort for conveniences, but those conveniences, they have a cost, right?
Do you use one? Is it like, so for example, the Teflon coating, is there any way to get around that? Can you put something in it when cooking, or do you just need to get rid of your air fryer? Because I don't want to do that, man.
So so everything that comes along that has a problem, there's always someone providing a solution, right?
Okay.
And you can actually go look up air fryer that's non-toxic and you'll find it. There's companies making it. So ceramic and other coatings that are not Teflon. It's also the black plastic that they use that's also challenging. But so we had this wave, this surge of innovators building wellness products, and wellness is literally outpacing pharma, all of it in terms of growth, because of the awareness, because of people seeking alternatives. So there's an option for every problem.
Yeah, it seems like a really tough thing to tackle is just some of the stuff that we have in our house.
Yeah.
You know, the air fryer, the microwave. The microwave is not only, emitting some potentially harmful things, but it also is like nuking our food and kind of messing with your food in general. Like I always just try to reheat my stuff on the stove, but then you got the pan, right? Like what type of pan are you using? It just gets to be daunting, and even our lights, even the lighting that we have. We used to have incandescent lights. Now the light bulbs that we have are not assisting our biology with energy. It's actually seems like it's making it worse and messing up our circadian rhythm. And it just seems like an onslaught of stuff. Like, where do you think some people should start to really just try to move the needle, just to be a little healthier over time?
So I would say purging inside your walls. So there's a study that came out of this university in Belgium earlier this year that said the indoor air quality of American homes is now 5 times worse the outdoor pollution we're escaping. 2 reasons, all of what's accumulatively in the home, And second, drywall doesn't breathe. It's just everything gets trapped, right? So anything that has a fragrance on it. And we're in California. This is the only state where they actually have to list what fragrance actually means.
For the record, I absolutely fucking hate the fragrance things my wife puts all around the house. I actually took all of them one time and put them in a box, and I said, you need to light these on fire. I can't handle it anymore.
If you light them on fire, do it outside of the house, far from the house. But the artificial fragrances between your soap, shampoo, air freshener, fabric softener, the plug-in, all of that stuff, total accumulative load. So when you study each one, and this is the sort of the farce of what's healthy and safe, each of these things gets studied as a unique, individual, siloed problem. It's not studied in the practical context of, I have 30 of these things in my home. And that's my actual exposure, right? When the FDA says, and they don't, by the way, most of these things the FDA doesn't even look at, right? For the little things that they do, they're looking at the one thing, the one ingredient in that bottle, which is not how you use it. You use it in a home full of other stuff. So purging anything that is artificial fragrance, purging anything that is sort of affecting the air quality of your home, step one, because there's no such thing as detox without removing the tox to begin with.
I have soaps that don't have a scent, and my daughter's like, that makes no sense.
So I can tell you how much does this affect you. I work with some fertility clinics on some of their more challenging cases where women over and over again in vitro fertilization can't get pregnant. And so one of the first things we do is we go into the clinic and get all the staff to stop wearing perfume. Because they're now affecting the endocrine system of that patient and disrupting their hormones. And 3 months after purging the cosmetics, the perfumes, etc., all of a sudden the woman gets pregnant. And that was the one thing that was left, right? Medicating a damaged organ versus just managing hormones and letting them be the way they were supposed to be. So that's the outcome, just so people are wondering, like, how much does this stuff matter, right?
It matters a lot more than we
yeah.
than we want to admit. What about lighting in the house? Like, what are some suggestions that might help somebody, not just sit and get cooked in blue light all day long?
Yeah, so lighting, our eyes are constantly surveying the environment to understand what time it is. And it's not just a question of lunchtime, dinner time. It's like every hormone, every neurochemical is supposed to happen at the right time. So as an example, our cave people ancestors, we still have cave people DNA, nothing's changed. Every night before they slept, they didn't have Netflix and laptops. They had dark and they had fire. So still till today, our eyes are waiting for fire in the dark as a signal to bind melatonin. So you make melatonin all day, but until you've actually bound it, received it in the brain, you don't actually get sleepy. That's a sleep hormone, right? It does other things too, but that's a major one major job that it does. It's one, the type of light, red, but it's also the angle of the light. So if you're in your home at midnight with overhead pot lights, that's a signal that it's noon, right? Your eyes are surveying where's the light coming from and what spectrum is it. We're supposed to get red light in the first sort of hour and a half of the day, and the last hour and a half of the day. And those are very important cues. You're supposed to get blue and white and yellow light at the peak in the middle. So if you're sitting there at 9 p.m. with your laptop and your blue light and the wrong bulbs, you're telling your body it's the wrong time. And no surprise, you're waking up at 3 a.m. shuffling because your body doesn't think you went to bed. It thinks you went for a nap.
So how do you do things? Do you use red light bulbs? Do you use candlelight at some point? Do you just use glasses? How do you handle it?
So there's a little bit of practical reality. Like I'm a busy guy that has to work.
Yeah.
My laptop's open, right? So I'll put on the lenses like Mark has, right? Like but what I use a brand that has there's a clear lens during the day after sort of 3 p.m. Then there's like a clip on for like an orange, and then there's a dark amber that mimics that fire. And I'm looking through the fire. So now I can actually use my laptop without having to get rid of it. And it's actually supporting me because the light is giving me the amber, right? Bulbs.
What's the brand so people can check it out?
Viva Rays. They're called Viva Rays. I think they're out of Australia or New Zealand or somewhere. Yeah. And they also make this eye mask that's really awesome too, by the way, if you're there checking it out. So that made a big difference for me. Second thing, I would say the big two disruptors are light, and second is stress. When you're bringing stress into the evening, it was not supposed to happen. Human biology is designed to be in high stress 5% of the waking day. That's what it can tolerate. And you wonder why so many people are stuck in like fight or flight and anxiety. And, I did all the work of the supplements, but it's not working because your body's not in a regenerative state. It's stuck in fight or flight. So bringing that stress into the evening is a signal that cortisol is staying on. Cortisol staying on is a daytime signal where, again, all your sleep biology, it hasn't begun at the right time. So if you can deal with those two things, it will dramatically change your sleep.
And when it comes to, like specifics of like actually, maybe changing the lights and stuff? Have you messed with some of that yourself?
Oh, yeah. I have, so the regular daylight bulbs, and there's red light bulbs that come on during the evening. Yeah. I literally went and bought lamps for the first time in my life, realizing that when the light came from this angle, I actually felt calm. I actually felt less stressed.
If the light's not beaming down from above like you're in a hospital.
Yeah.
Right?
And we started using candles once in a while. Be careful because a lot of candles have fragrances in them, right? You have to be very clean and beeswax and straight, clean stuff. There's a phenomenon called chemical pneumonia that people are experiencing from constantly lighting candles and breathing in the fragrances. And it's literally causing this inflammation to the alveoli and fluid buildup and retention. And it's getting misdiagnosis as like bronchitis and pneumonia. It's a chemical pneumonia. So anyways, candles, lamps, red light, and you'll notice, do those things and your mood will change and your sleep will change.
I know that when we're talking about this, all these things add up, right? Someone might be listening and they're like, I use plastics, I use this, I use that. I ain't feeling shit. I feel great, right?
Yeah.
With all the people that you've seen, how can something go from minor to major? Like, why would people be considering getting rid of some of this stuff if they don't feel anything and they've been using it for a long time?
So there is a high level of variability on our genetic ability to deal with these toxins, right? So some people do a really good job. And some people have great circadian rhythm genetics and the blue light doesn't bother them.
I'd say someone in your house is suffering though.
Yeah,
right.
Guaranteed.
Like if you have 2, 3, or 4 people,
guaranteed,
someone's getting fucked up from the situation that you have, probably.
Yeah, and so in that home, it's exactly that, and you're much more likely to be in a I'm not doing well bucket than a good bucket. It's very unique that somebody would have good detox genetics. We didn't need it. Our ancestors didn't need it, right? Yeah. So that's one. Second, it is a cumulative load. And the body is resilient. It's designed to win. It's designed to fight and not be sick. We're not supposed to have chronic disease. So it is constantly fighting. Where you lose is an equation of here's the amount of inflammation, here's the amount of cellular energy. My mitochondria, how much energy am I producing, right? Yeah. When it looks like this, inflammation is greater than energy, chronic disease. When it looks like this, energy is less than inflammation, more than inflammation, you're not in a disease state. You're still not healthy, but there's nothing to diagnose. And we think that diagnosis is step 1 to the illness. It's not. The inflammation started 7, 8, 10 years prior to where the body finally gave up and the energy came down here and the inflammation went up here. If you look at the top 15 reasons why people die in the United States, 14 are rooted in inflammation. So it's the same central hub that drives all this stuff. So they're all the same thing. They're inflammation, right? From pulmonary to cancer to cardiovascular issues, etc. So all the stuff you just mentioned are the little puzzle pieces that add up to greater levels of inflammation, cellular dysfunction. And the longer you wait and the more you add, the bigger the inflammation, lower the cellular energy as you age, eventually there's a disease.
Water seems to be a tough thing for people to try to figure out on how to fix, at least through my research and the different friends that I have that are obsessed over this stuff. There doesn't seem to be like one awesome company that's really figured out like exactly what to do with water, but maybe you have some suggestions and recommendations. And I think it'd be helpful on the show if you could give specifics of the brands and stuff.
Yeah, sure.
Not like we're just trying to like plug something and have somebody make money off it or anything like that. But I think it's just super helpful because I get super confused on like which brand, sometimes you hear something and then you're trying to do your best and you hear about a particular brand.
Like or air fryer brand,
or you get the wrong brand of something that you were trying to, I guess, make a better situation for yourself. And you may have made it worse. So, what should people do with their water, and what should they be looking for?
So, know that in the United States, your water, if you've done nothing, let's start with tap water. We know about the fluoride and chloride. There's been a lot of talk about that. There's also the forever chemicals. So, there's this military base in North Carolina where the veterans of that base have a 30% elevated risk of developing Parkinson's. Just the data shows that, right? And you would think that doesn't add up because it's just a base. What difference does it make? The drinking water there has a chemical in it called TCE, which is a forever chemical, doesn't break down, lasts forever, keeps going. It comes from industrial spill-off. So that's also neurodegenerative. And if you're drinking it every day for several years as your base there, and you then, like we were talking about earlier, happen to be in the bad detox bucket, your genetics aren't good, then it lingers. And so now you end up with something like, looks like Parkinson's, diagnosis Parkinson's, but is actually toxic-induced neurodegeneration, right? TCE is now in 30% of American drinking water because of firefighting foam and you name it, just all sorts of stuff that goes into water. And because it's a forever chemical, doesn't matter if filtration, it doesn't break down. It lasts forever. It's infinite, right? So knowing that, reverse osmosis, clean your water, right? So there's a company, just to name companies, AquaTrue. They're actually based out of California. They do a really good job with like countertop if you're in a small place, or plugged right into your water line and hard tap on your counter. Then after reverse osmosis, you've pulled literally all that comes through is H2O. Everything else is removed other than radiation. Some people live in a site with the radiation, right? And the only real way to deal with radiation is distilling. Then you've also removed the minerals. So you need to remineralize. And that's either through the device itself or by taking some form of mineral supplement, right? Because you do need minerals in your water, or just a pinch of mineral salt. Then it's also considering that because the water is so industrially processed, it's no longer structured properly. So there, you'll hear people say that I drink all this water, but I'm still dehydrated, or I just pee it out as soon as I drink it, right? So structure means picture a snowflake, like a beautiful snowflake, and then picture one where the arms are twisted and broken. That's structure, right? And now if it's not structured properly, the cell membrane doesn't recognize it as a water molecule, doesn't let it in. So you're dehydrated. So there are devices you can use that will structure. There's a company called Somavedic that actually makes a EMF mitigating device. So it allows you to deal with all your Wi-Fi, etc. But put a glass of water on it and it structures it. It only takes a minute, right?
What's this device? Can you tell us a little bit?
Somavedic, Somavedic.
And what does it do?
It's originally designed for neutralizing EMF, harmful dirty electricity and EMF in your home. So the waves pass through your body as opposed to sticking in and causing inflammation. But it also happens to structure in water because it sends a sort of a harmonizing wave. But a lot of these EMF mitigating devices will do this. They'll structure your water, right?
Will a device like that potentially help somebody with their sleep so they're not getting as much EMF?
This is one of the major reasons for sleep disruption, which is your headboard is right up against the wall with all your wiring and dirty electricity flowing through it. And you wonder why you can't sleep. And I urge you, go test. You can go to any Home Depot and buy an EMF meter, and you'll see what's going on in your walls right behind your head, which was that the first 3 hours of sleep is the primary time where your body detoxifies. So there's glymphatic drainage of the brain. The glymph system pulls everything out. Lymphatic drainage, glutathione comes and binds everything. Now you pee and poop it out in the morning, right? If you're burdening yourself with more toxic load at the exact time you're supposed to detoxify, you don't get the job done. Why just some people wake up sluggish and, so anyways, yeah. So long story short, yeah, getting it will help your sleep.
Moving
also.
your bed maybe a foot or something, will that, move it a foot away from?
It will definitely make a difference. Yeah, definitely. And there's a company called Satic Shield, SATIC. They actually make a device. It's like looks like a tent kind of material that you can put between your headboard and the wall that actually blocks it to some degree. I think they even make a device you can hardwire into your electrical panel to clean up your whole home, right?
This is where the tinfoil hat stuff starts to come into play.
Yeah, I've seen guys, like, we work with a lot of pro athletes, right? And when they're on the road, they can't control their environment. So we actually give them like a Faraday cage where it looks like a mosquito net on their bed, right? Because it helps them with recovery, helps them with performance the next day. So they travel with it, right?
I've seen those beds before. Yeah, it's just like a curtain.
Yeah, it's a curtain. Yeah. And it literally changes how they feel the next day because they're not getting EMF bomb while they sleep.
This is right where I'm heading.
Yeah. So sorry, the last thought about water. So we said, clean it, mineralize it, structure it. The other tool that you can use water for is its hydrogen content. And you're probably hearing a lot of buzz about hydrogen in water, right? Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of devices now to add additional hydrogen to your water, which is this miracle molecule I can talk about for an hour straight about what it does. But essentially upregulates mitochondria, cleans out all the toxins. A really powerful tool.
Is it just adding bubbles?
It looks like, you're bubbling because you're infusing hydrogen you're getting some water, taking the hydrogen out and adding it to your drinking water. So it's through this bubble infusion. The main thing it does, there's a gene pathway in your body called NRF2, which controls the volume of 200 detox and antioxidant genes. So all these genes that are responsible to identify and clean you up, it turns the volume on like high. It induces this gene expression. So your body just on rapid, remove every single toxin and increase mitochondrial function. That's what it does.
Is this something that you would probably want to pay attention to with your shower also? Or?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, because shower, if you're in a high chlorinated city where you're breathing in the chlorine steam, right?
Yeah.
So fluoride turns into fluorine which is again a potent cancer-causing toxin. So when you take your non-filtered water, go boil some pasta, it's no longer fluoride, it's now fluorine. Go look up fluorine and see what that does to your body, right? Which is why fluoride is also so dangerous. But same thing with your shower, But you can now go on Amazon, you can buy a shower head that literally filters things out before it hits your body. Or the reverse osmosis we talked about for your water, you can actually get a whole home reverse osmosis system right from your water tank. So even your shower water, you can drink out of your toilet if you want. It's clean.
Well, since we've talked, I don't know, Mark, do you have more questions about water? We talked about air a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Getting out those air fresheners, et cetera. Is there anything else we should do for our air? And that's a lot of people get air purifiers. Does that do anything? What should we be thinking?
It does, and especially in today's reality. So the considerations are different today, right? We can't assume that we live in grandma's reality anymore. Things have changed dramatically. So what is baseline no longer woo-woo it's now a need, right? Things have changed. You need to do more. And so air filtration is important. And AquaTrue actually has a company called Air Doctor, I think, that it's so powerful that you can be in a room with COVID and it kills the COVID. Literally, it was used in hospitals and clinics for that purpose. They actually produced it because in LA, it's very difficult to not live close to a highway, right? You're either next to a freeway or highway. You're within distance that is, according to the Environmental Protection Agency, you're beyond the upper limit of exposure. And that's why they actually made the device. So yeah, big deal, air filtration. But the other thing is just opening your windows, letting your home breathe, right? Homes were meant to be built out of stone and wood, which breathes. We're now in drywall, which doesn't. So letting it breathe. And this is why we have, I think 50% of American homes now have mold beyond what the body can tolerate because of the drywall and because of the lack of breath. So you're supposed to have some mold. The mold in your home is meant to match the outdoor flora of wherever you live. But when you let it in and then you trap it, it starts to grow and grow and grow and far beyond that number. So yeah, letting it breathe is a big deal.
I will never go to a doctor ever again about my general health. All they want to do is put you on pills.
Really well said there by Dana White. Couldn't agree with him more. A lot of us are just trying to get jacked and tan. A lot of us just want to look good, feel good. And a lot of the symptoms that we might acquire as we get older, some of the things that we might have, high cholesterol or these various things, it's amazing to have somebody looking at your blood work as you're going through the process, as you're trying to become a better athlete, somebody that knows what they're doing. They can look at your cholesterol. They can look at the various markers that you have, and they can kind of see where you're at, and they can help guide you through that.
And there's a few aspects too, where it's like, yes, I mean, no shade to doctors, but a lot of times they do want to just stick you on medication. A lot of times there is supplementation that can help with this. At Merrick Health, these patient care coordinators are going to also look at the way you're living your lifestyle, because there's a lot of things you might be doing that if you just adjust that, boom, you could be at the right levels, including working with your testosterone.
And there's so many people that I know that are looking for, they're like, hey, should I do that? They're very curious. And they think that testosterone is going to all of a sudden kind of turn them into the Hulk. But that's not really what happens. It can be something that can be really great for your health, because you can just basically live your life a little stronger, just like you were maybe in your 20s and 30s.
And this is the last thing to keep in mind, guys. When you get your blood work done at a hospital, they're just looking at like these minimum levels. At Merrick Health, they try to bring you up to ideal levels for everything you're working with. Whereas if you go into a hospital and you have 300 nanograms per deciliter of test, you're good, bro, even though you're probably feeling like shit. At Merrick Health, they're going to try to figure out what things you can do in terms of your lifestyle. And if you're a candidate, potentially TRT. So these are things to pay attention to get you to your best self.
And what I love about it is a little bit of the back and forth that you get with the patient care coordinator. They're dissecting your blood work. It's not like you just get this email back and it's just like, hey, try these 5 things. Somebody's actually on the phone with you, going over every step and what you should do. Sometimes it's supplementation, sometimes it's TRT, and sometimes it's simply just some lifestyle habit changes.
All right, guys, if you want to get your blood work checked and also get professional help from people who are going to be able to get you towards your best levels, head to merrickhealth.com and use code POWERPROJECT for 10% off any panel of your choice. Well, go ahead, Ash.
I was going to say, is there any ways of getting rid of mold other than like destroying your house?
Yeah, repatriation is, you have to destroy your home. It's a challenge, but you can't get rid of it. You have to destroy it. And the bigger challenge is getting it out of your body. right? So, and I would tell you also that the majority of who we're seeing now that has a mold issue, it's not even from their home, it's from their food, right? So we now have this globalized food transport system. So things like coffee, right? It's grown somewhere in South America, for example, tested on site as mold-free, packaged, but then shipped in a container for the next couple of months.
This was Dave Asprey's whole thing. He said all coffee has mold.
Yeah. You take it for granted. Unless it's organic, mold-free, tested in the place where you're buying it, it probably has mold, right? And then you have decaffeinated coffee. The caffeine is the tool that the coffee bean used to protect itself from the mold. Then you remove the caffeine, so it's even more sort of the mold is flourishing, right?
More toxic, yeah.
Yeah. So anyways, having said that, food, the sort of packaged, boxed stuff that the food stuff or the raw ingredient was shipped in bulk in a container, you can assume that has mold in it and you're eating it. And this is why people that I repatriated my home, I've never had a leak, I don't get it. They're chock full of mold because of their food, right? So a lot can be done to detox it, but just know if you go online and someone talks about like, here's your 1 month mold detox, it's not going to work. It's a 7-8 month process. You need a good functional medicine doctor to guide you through it. But it is doable. If you do it properly, 8 months into it, you're good.
What does that look like?
So certain nutrients that purge. So speaking of brand, you said you want to mention stuff. The company called Cellcore, I think you have to order through a practitioner. You can't order it yourself.
You were saying this one also can help with parasites and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, that's actually where their first product was a parasite killer, right? Parasite killer and a binder. And now they have a line of mold detox. So that's what we'll use to get mold.
It's a disgusting topic to think that we got like worms crawling around inside our body.
Yeah. So just like the mold, there's meant to be some, right? But there's not meant to be the volume we have, right? We're symbiotic with a lot of stuff. There's bacteria everywhere. There's, I was dealing with a young lady the other day who has a vaginal issue, and you take the scan, put it on the screen, there's bacteria everywhere. He's like, oh my God, that's me? Like, yeah, but there's supposed to be a biome of bacteria. It's just like, is the wrong one overgrown, right? That's what we're dealing with worms, mold. It's too much of the bad stuff, right?
I got a question about fruit. I eat a lot of fruit.
Yeah.
I never know what to do with it. Like I don't know, I rinse it off, but like just with like water. What are some recommendations you have to, you try to buy organic, but who the hell knows what that even means half the time. But what are some suggestions to like clean your fruit or vegetables?
So there's a device called a Kangen. So we were speaking about hydrogen water. So Kangen is like, it's an alkaline device. That plus baking soda really helps. So hydrogen plus baking soda. When it comes to fruit, if we go back again, caveman ancestor context, what is fruit? Fruit was something that grew during the spring and summer to get you ready for winter. What does that mean? The sugar in it is fructose. Fructose is processed through the liver. So when you eat your little bit of fruit in here and there, great. I eat fruit daily. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it, right? But when you eat it in high volume, where it's a majority of what you do, it will cause you to gain weight. That's what it was designed for. It was designed, here's the food that's available at this
Especially
season.
Fruit juice.
Yeah. Yeah.
You gain like 12 pounds like in a really short period of time, so we always joke about it.
Yeah, it forces your liver into what we call lipogenesis, production of new fat. That's what fructose is for, right? The other thing to consider is combination. And, I posted a video about this that I got a lot of backlash, but it's true. And a lot of nutritionists and dietitians were saying, what's this nonsense? There's published studies, you can look at it. Wherever you come from, things grow there, right? And other things don't grow there. Just the nature of where you live. So if you take a banana that's tropical and you combine it with a blueberry, that's a bush fruit that don't grow in the same place, they void each other's nutrients out. So when you take, so blueberry is like a chock full
this happens amongst plants too. Plants will like kill each other, right? Like if they're planted next to each other and they don't belong next to each other, right?
Yeah. So they were never designed to be, so they're foreign to each other, right?
Wait, so the nutrients absorbed, you're saying that.
So if there's nutrients, there's anti-nutrients in a banana. So anthocyanin is the main thing you want from a blueberry. Mm-hmm. A blueberry it's a very potent antioxidant. So there used to be a treatment in England prior to chemical medicine where if a woman got breast cancer, she would eat blueberries until she turned blue. That was cancer treatment, right? Because it was so full of anthocyanin that it would just kill all the cancer cells, right? So now when you add a banana to the mix, it shuts the anthocyanin off. You're not getting it's sugar at that point. So not combining is a very important consideration. Total volume, not overdoing it is a consideration. Wild versus organic. So when you buy your blueberries, there's a big difference between buying something organic, which still was plucked raw, shipped in the back of a truck, ripened in a truck, didn't really naturally vine ripen, versus wild, which is plucked ripe on the vine, then frozen. And you'll find going to Costco and buying a bag of wild fruit is better than anything on the shelf.
Like would the wild fruit be frozen?
Frozen, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
And frozen fruit is amazing. I don't even know. I don't know where I've been, but I've been buying frozen fruit for the last couple weeks because I've just been eating more fruit, and I'm like, how did I not know about this?
Yeah.
It's so good because you can like bite right through a strawberry that's like totally frozen, or you can just leave it out just for like a little bit and super cold, and it's just awesome.
Can I disappoint you about strawberries?
Sure. Yeah, well, I know they can hold a lot of...
They hold a lot. Yeah, so it's the one fruit, I think, unless it is truly, truly organic and clean, you have to avoid. The nature of the flesh, the skin, it absorbs every pesticide, right? And so even if it's organic, it's growing right next to other. So there's a famous clip of Gary Brecka talking about take a strawberry that's, laden with pesticides, squeeze it, and the juice that comes out of it is a pesticide.
Yeah, I've seen videos of that too. Yeah,
and that's true.
Nasty.
We've tested it. It's true. Yeah.
This is one of the things that I think I'm personally getting frustrated because all these things that are supposed to be healthy, you don't know how they're not potentially healthy for you. And it's like, what the hell can you do? Because even on social media, you see people telling you can't eat this. And then you see other people telling you can eat this. It's like, do you have a guide for all this stuff?
Yeah. So my guide is my DNA.
Yeah.
Right? Because I believe that there's bio-individuality. This is why you have so much conflict. Because something that was great for somebody else wasn't for someone else, right?
Yeah.
And so the way we receive it and benefit of it is truly different. What we even need is truly different and unique. And so I use my DNA to figure it out. I also use my gut. So I test my gut regularly to know what's my microbiome doing. And therefore, whatever I just did it benefit me or hurt me, right? So it's really checking and testing. So right now, we think testing is, am I sick or not? Right? Let me go get blood work to know if I need a pill. That's what we've been taught to believe. Testing should be, do I need maintenance or not? Did I go, out of the guardrails? My strategy is failing me and I need to tweak something. And I just never need the medication. That's what testing should be about. And so we now have that. Gut microbiome testing was unheard of 10 years ago. Now it's ubiquitous everywhere, right? So that's what I do. But there also is truth to, when somebody studies something, you have to ask, what did they actually study? Meaning, okay, somebody says meat and carnivore is the greatest tool you can have. And then there's a whole bunch of published studies saying it will give you cancer. So the guy that went carnivore probably brought grass-fed, organic, pasture-raised meat. And the study probably went to Walmart, right? And I understand there's a budget and cost of things, but you have to understand what was in the study itself. It's not always the same thing, right?
Yeah, it makes it frustrating, as Nsima's kind of pointing out. But even for yourself, you just try to make the best decisions, the best choices that you can. You're not, you're not just only running around with wild fruit and stuff like that. You still go to Starbucks. You mentioned you have a kid and stuff like that, and you went to like Disneyland or something like that. So you still do normal, regular shit and eat normal, regular food. It's just that you happen to have learned all these kind of disappointing things that you can now, for yourself and for the people you're sharing the information with, they can make a conscious and a decision now with newfound knowledge.
Yeah.
And they could just know, like, okay, I'm buying this, and this might not be the absolute best upper limit choice for me to make, but it's still better than me buying a candy bar.
Yeah, so it's total toxic burden, right? And I'm at a place, like you're saying, where I've done enough work where if I go back 5-6 years ago, if I were to go to a restaurant and eat a piece of bread, I would break out in eczema from the potassium bromate that's in it, the glyphosate that's in it, the garbage flour that was used, all of it, the folic acid. Now I can go to that same place, eat that same piece of bread and be fine. So I'm not trying to do that. What I'm saying is I do this so that I do have the ability to not get hurt by what things, but I have to go to a wedding of a friend. I have to go visit a family member. I have to travel, which I'm doing right now. Can't control what's going on, right? So my toxic bucket, which was at a 9.5 out of 10, is now at like a 2. So it can handle me going to 3 or 4 once in a while and I don't get sick. Right. And so you have to also be practical about living amongst other people, right?
Let's talk more about parasites. Is it true that parasites there's like a misdiagnosis sometimes of cancer and it's actually parasites. Have you heard people talk that way? Do you think that's actually a thing?
Well, a cause, not only misdiagnosis, but an actual cause, right? Parasites can, depending on which worm, can cause a whole slew of things. And so we are burdened far more than before, partly to do with our food supply, right? Also our habits and our simple habit where a dog used to be something that lived outside to protect you. Now it looks like this and it sleeps in your bed. Well,
I got two of those.
Yeah. Right? So changes in our habits cause outcomes, right? And so guaranteed you have parasites if your dog sleep in your bed. So, and guaranteed now your wife or your kids, and they potentially, that's what's changed. That the context has changed. We haven't changed. So yeah, it's almost kind of a given that we have a parasitic load. It's very difficult not to. But what it causes, you name it, right? Again, inflammation can lead to anything.
So Mark, you have been loving wearing these Paluvas for a long time. Why is it that you like these shoes that look like this?
I'm trying to get my feet to be jacked. You know, I think it's funny how sometimes people will, when I wear these shoes, they're like, oh, those are different. And I'm like, well, maybe you should blame God because this is the human foot. This is the way that it looks. But Paluvas are awesome because it's going to allow you to train your feet and train your toes and allow for that toe spread because you got the 5-finger toe thing going on. It's like put on a glove for your feet. It feels amazing.
It's like walking around with toe spacers. You know, we've been working on our feet for a long time now. You always hear the benefit of people talking about like these tribes who have gone without shoes forever. And they have this toe space and have these amazing feet. And these shoes will allow you to just passively get that back by walking around.
You don't realize what a disadvantage you're at when your foot is all clumped together from the football cleats or soccer cleats or whatever else you were wearing when you were young. And so it's nice to be able to splay your toes. In addition to that, though, one thing I love about Paluva is the fact that it's not a regular barefoot shoe. I do love barefoot shoes as well, but it also has appropriate padding. And when you're stepping on some crazy pebbles and rocks and different things, like when I'm out on a run, some terrain is a little different than others. I don't have to be worried that I'm going to get some sort of stabbing, crazy thing happening to my foot because it has an appropriate amount of cushion underneath the foot.
And guys, Paluva has a lot of different styles on their website. I think one of the newest styles they just came out with, which is a little bit more of a rigorous shoe, is the Strand ATR. It's not these are the Strands, but the ATRs have a little bit more. If you want to go hiking with them, you totally can.
Those are amazing. If you go out, throw those on and go sprint on a field and your feet feel so strong, grabbing the grass and being able to actually grab the ground with your foot feels amazing.
I'm more of a chill guy with my Paluva, so I like the Zen slip-ons, but that's the thing. With Paluva, there's a lot of different options. So if you head to paluva.com and use code POWERPROJECT, you'll be able to save 15% off your entire purchase. And they also have toe socks. Their 5-finger toe socks are no show, so check those out too.
Right. And trying to get rid of the parasites, as you were mentioning to me on our walk, can be really difficult, and it can also wreak havoc on your body if you don't know how to get rid of them.
Yeah, I think there's two big things that even most medical doctors don't understand, because medical doctors are taught to think about things in silos. Like, here's the thing we're dealing with, parasites, right? Not the functional of upstream and downstream. If I start dealing with the parasites, what else does that change? And if you think about an ideal environment for parasites, they like metal. So they're usually associated with heavy metal poisoning or some heavy metal burden of some sort. And so often people will go through a parasite cleanse and they'll start taking all the right stuff and they'll actually see the worms coming out on their poop, but it just doesn't end. Yeah, literally there's guys that they'll take their fork and sift around and take pictures, and there's Facebook groups of people comparing, and yeah. So having said that, it doesn't end. Why doesn't it end? Because your body wants to detoxify things in the right order. It wants to prioritize the largest molecules first. Then it goes downstream to other stuff. So if you start at parasites without first tackling metal, which also means you potentially also have to tackle mold, which means you didn't understand the entire sort of landscape of toxic burden, you may never reach the finish line, right? Because you're fueling them to survive by not dealing with the metal and mold. So that's one layer. Second layer is when you kill them, often people will feel worse. And they're like, I don't get it. I see them coming out. Why do I feel worse? Because killing parasites means literal, sometimes explosion, biotoxin release. And those biotoxins, whereas the parasites made you bloated or gassy, or these will make you feel horrible. The biotoxins, and inflammation to a much higher degree. And that's where people get stuck literally for a couple of years, where the biotoxins in their muscle tissue, in their brain, everywhere. So knowing a total protocol as opposed to just let me kill the parasites. Well, I also need to bind what they release when I kill them, so I don't feel horrible. And so it's knowing the actual practical reality, what it means to kill them.
Yeah, I've heard Dr. Gabrielle Lyon say recently that she thinks, around 95% of people have, and especially people with pets and all the things you were kind of pointing out, 95% of people have parasites. And I think that leads some people to say, oh shit, well, I should treat this.
Yeah.
But then they don't get a test for it. And maybe that wouldn't be the best idea. Is it unsafe to try to treat parasites if you don't have them?
No, I wouldn't say so. You have them. Guaranteed you have them, right? It's just how many do you have and which ones do you have, right? So we all have them. So not unsafe. It's unsafe to do it the wrong way because, like we said, explosion, biotoxin release, you'll
hurt yourself. Something like ivermectin? Like is ivermectin, is it fairly dangerous? I mean, I guess if you don't know the dosage, that could be very dangerous, right?
So, it's funny you mentioned that ivermectin is the reason why I started using Instagram. And I'll tell you what happened is I didn't even have a social media account, didn't care. I saw on the news, I think it was on CNN, horse dewormer being used for COVID, right? And then I saw it on every other channel. I saw it like, these guys know that this has been dosed to over 300 million people, that there was a Nobel Prize given for this drug because of its effectiveness for parasites. So why is everyone calling it a horse? If I can figure that out, why can't the CNN figure that out? That's literally the reason why I started talking online. When I saw that, I was like, wow, what are we being told? Where's this narrative coming from, right? And so I started research and learning. But anyways, having said that, that's what it is. It's a parasite killer, right? It's been given out. The same people that poo-pooed it during the time when we needed it donated money to send it to Africa to kill parasites when there was like an epidemic in certain countries, right? And it worked. So yeah, it works in a big way, but again, practitioner guided, because if you're killing things, you also need to deal with the downstream biotoxins.
Okay. Not necessarily a switch, but there's all these things that we can and should get rid of. But how about making the system itself more resilient? So strengthening the immune system, improving mitochondria, what are the things that you would have people add so that maybe we can just handle more load?
So 85% of your immune system lives in the wall of your gut. And it's very hard to be an American that doesn't have a broken gut, right? Dysbiotic, leaky of some sort because of the toxic burden of food. So focusing on repairing the gut wall, whether that means fasting regularly, just giving you, if you fast for 24 hours, your body surges stem cells into your gut tract and it starts to repair specifically the gut.
Okay, pause there real quick. Just for you, how often do you do a 24-hour fast?
So I'll do 24-hour to 36-hour like once a month.
Okay.
Right? And my fasting schedule is like, first of all, it's not as rigid or regimented as it used to be. I now rely on feel, right? And what did I do on the weekend with my friends, right? And what do I need to respond to? But I will try and do a longer fast at least once a month. Okay. And intermittent, not necessarily every day, right? But probably half the week.
And you just did Ramadan, right?
I just finished 30 days. So I did one meal a month for the last 30 days, right? And
one meal a day for the last 30 days.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was a religious fast, but I turned it into something else too, right? So
I think they're supposed to wake up when the sunlight, and have breakfast and then eat when the sun goes down.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right?
So I just skipped the first one. So I did one meal a day. So fasting, big deal for fixing your gut. There are things like glutamine, bone collagen. Beef collagen is actually great for the gut wall. So even just drinking bone broth regularly, amazing for the gut wall. Aloe vera. Whether it's buying an aloe vera plant and clipping it and eating once in a while, which is disgusting, but you can do it.
My mom does that.
Yeah?
She blends aloe vera into drinks. And
amazing.
I pick it up from her. Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing for the gut.
Okay.
Then there's peptides. Like everyone's talking about BPC 157. Incredible for gut repair, right?
And that can be taken orally as well, right? You don't have to inject it.
Yeah, you can inject or take a pill.
Right?
Yeah, both, yeah. There's a product called GI Revive by a company called Designs for Health. It's a functional medicine supplement brand, which it blends a lot of the stuff together. So just a single scoop makes it easy. It just takes longer. With that, it might take you 6 to 8 months, or you do a long fast, 72-hour type thing. You might, within that 72 hours, fix your gut, right? So
sunlight, red light therapy on the stomach.
So yeah, there's a company called, I think, Thrive, CERA, that actually makes a red light device that's specifically designed for
like
your gut.
Belt.
Yeah. But it's the red light belts you see are usually for like fat burning. This one goes much deeper, right?
see.
It goes deeper into the tissue. They also make one for your, they make the headband too. Yeah, that one's for brain, which again, it's hard to get red light past the skull because the skull is quite thick. So that's what they do. But yeah, we can talk again about the gut for an hour, but that's a big one. Yeah.
Okay.
What do you do currently for exercise?
So I don't train as much as I used to. I used to be at the gym 5-ish days a week. Right now it's like 3. And I realized that, so I up here, if I have your DNA, I can describe your personality to a T. I don't even need to talk to you. I know if you're an entrepreneur, if you're an accountant, if you're a drama queen, if you're like, all of it, we know it, right? So I am wired for what we call warrior genetics. I seek reward, I take risks. And I was constantly living in burnout. So part of my fitness and my fat loss had to do with this more than it did with what it was. Like, I'm doing exactly what they're doing. Why am I stuck? And it had to do with nervous system dysregulation. It had to do with being stuck in high cortisol, fight or flight.
So did you lose more weight doing a little bit less?
Yes. Doing a little bit less, not stressing my body as much, and dealing with my nervous system. So I replaced training days with nervous system days, regulating my nerves so that my body receives signals of calm as opposed to signals of stress. So it gets out of fight or flight, which is a cortisol driver, right? Cortisol tells your body, especially as a man, you're going to battle. You're going to get stabbed by a sword. Let's start packing fat on the gut so that I'm protected against that sword. That's what was happening to me, right? So I train less and I do a lot of work till failure now.
No days off, bro.
Yeah. yeah. It just
you need them. Yeah, you need to have rest days.
You need to have rest, yeah.
What are you doing for your nervous system? Is there anything in particular? Or is just...
Yeah. I pray a lot, right? And that disconnect, that gratitude. So, the exact same part of your brain that allows you to experience anxiety, stress, trauma is also what allows you to experience gratitude and forgiveness. And your brain cannot do both at the same time. So if you're truly, authentically, and sincerely in a state of gratitude, you cannot feel anxiety, stress, or trauma. It's off, right? And so I do that. I pray. I feel, like truly in my heart, feel gratitude. Your brain, in as much as it thinks, it doesn't actually know what's going on. It's relying on your thoughts to tell it. And when I say thoughts, the words in your head, but also your heart. Your heart has 40 million neural cells that think through what we experience as emotion. Your gut has neural cells that the instinct you feel. The vagus nerve directly connects the brain and the gut. And why do I say this? Because your instinct and emotion have more impact over what your brain believes to be true versus what you're saying to yourself, what you think is true, right? So if you can truly feel gratitude, your body believes you, shuts the stress off. I also use vagus nerve stimulation. So there's devices you can put, your vagus nerve sits right here below your ear, behind your jawline. There's some neuroscientists that have studied the various frequencies of the mind. So happy, sad, calm, etc. And you can actually embed calming frequencies into your vagus nerve, which controls your entire nervous system. There's a device called Apollo Neuro. You can wear it on your wrist. I think it's David Rabin, this neuroscientist that designed it. You can actually turn it on. You can be like, no, I want to be in like go mode, and it will turn your nerves on too. You can do it both ways, right?
What's that company called?
Apollo Neuro. Apollo Neuro. Yeah, and this one is called the Hoolist, HOOLEST. It's more powerful, but this is more like I can wear it all day to be resilient against whatever I'm doing, right? Then I'll use phosphatidylserine, which is known to be like a brain nutrient, but the why it works is because it suppresses cortisol. And there's also something called Cerephos that suppresses cortisol. And I find if I take it in the evening, shuts cortisol off, I sleep amazing, right?
What about clothing? Because I think, there's a company, Nads, who makes cotton underwear, et cetera. Like, how big of a deal is some of the clothing we're wearing, and what should people be thinking about there?
So forever chemicals and frequency, right?
Frequency.
Yeah, frequency, meaning that everything, we know now based on quantum science that everything is frequency. It's not structured molecules. It's actually particles that emit frequency and then they come together to form a form, right? So certain fabrics, we used to have in hospitals linen. Now we have plastic, right? And so that's actually made a difference in outcomes. So linen, the frequency of what it takes to make linen or cotton is actually healing for the body. You can measure it. You can actually measure the sound wave emitting from certain fabrics and fat fibers versus plastic or polymers or, polyesters, the frequency is actually harmful to the body. So natural fabrics are literally linen and cotton, wool. You can feel it. If you were to wear linen and wear wool, you can actually feel that sense of zen and calm.
That's why I wear linen pants all the time.
Yeah. And versus wearing a polymer type thing will actually do the opposite. Second thing to consider is fast fashion and the forever chemicals. So there's this research done on, unfortunately, yoga pants and women, and the worst part, like the crotch lining, the worst part you could have it. The crotch lining is full of forever chemicals, phthalates, parabens, that now you have this open cavity that's actually very highly absorbent, by the way, that skin. And you're getting women with cervical issues and hormone disruption from their yoga pants, right? So knowing, is it fast fashion? It's probably processed with forever chemicals. Your skin will absorb it. It takes 25 seconds from the time you put something on your skin to be in your bloodstream. It's like you ate it, basically, no difference. And frequency. What's the fabric?
What are your thoughts on grounding?
Oh, amazing. Yeah, I think so. I've noticed I feel different when I do it and when I don't. And when I pray, I put my head on the ground for certain portions of it, and I realize that all this ancient wisdom that we already have the answers. My prayer, and as much as it is gratitude, as much as there's some dogma to it, it's also like this was meant to benefit me now. And I realized that 5 times a day, putting my head on the ground was meant to be grounding. And I wasn't doing it properly. I'm upstairs in my bedroom on the 2nd floor, flying in the sky. That's not what it was for. And so I do it. I'll go outside in the backyard and pray right on the ground. And I actually feel different.
You get a lot of surface area of your body on the ground because your shins and your knees and your feet are all on the ground, and maybe like your forearms and your head in this case.
Yeah, you're getting it all. So that, and plus when I go into a sauna, I'll put a grounding mat on the floor, just put my feet on it. So I'm getting both at the same time. Standing here, sometimes I'll have a grounding mat underneath me. Grounding sheets, right? You can actually go buy, I think there's a company called Grounding Well, whole bunch of stuff from grounding mats to sheets that while you're sleeping, it used to be a therapy where 6-7 years ago, when we didn't have all these great grounding tools, some people would come to us with like autoimmunity, chronic pain, arthritis type stuff. We would look at their genetics and we would say, I don't see this. Like, it doesn't look like you should have this problem. So there's something else going on. Literally take a copper wire, wrap it on some metal part of their bed, throw it out the window and stick it on the ground, ground them for 2 weeks of sleep, and the arthritis is gone. It sounds like woo-woo, too good to be true. But based on their DNA, we can already see they weren't supposed to have that problem, and it often was a mitochondrial need for grounding problem, right? Our ancestors slept on the ground, which means 8 hours a day of grounding connection, which we don't do, right? So we're losing that, and our body actually needs it.
Yeah, I have a pair of shoes that are called Grounds. I think there's other companies that make similar things, and it just has like a little copper thing in it.
Yeah.
And I haven't specifically noticed anything super different from it, but it's just like another opportunity to ground. And I try to get into my grass as much as I can, and those kinds of things. And I think just the practice too of just, look, you're going outside.
Yeah.
You're getting some sunlight. You're getting exposed to the outdoor elements. So even when people maybe they don't like fully believe it, maybe they don't fully buy into it, but like I think everybody can agree that just going outside, period, has a great impact. But yeah, grounding I think is has tremendous value. You were mentioning the sauna. What are some things that you think the sauna can do for us? So
there's, first of all, the debate versus red light versus traditional dry sauna, right? And both have their own unique benefits. There's a lot of data and claims around, Alzheimer's reversal, cardiovascular disease support, and you have to know which one to choose. So let me give you an example. So there's people from Finland are most likely to have a dysregulation in a gene pathway called BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor. BDNF is like a fertilizer for your brain. So it drives what we call neuroplasticity, the development of new neurons. So I can learn faster, think how things don't mean as much. My brain's just on fire, right? So people from Finland don't do well with this gene, which means they should have bad neuroplasticity, which means they should be bad learners and things should have a lot of weight, and meaning they should be literally drama queens. Everything means a lot, right? Meanwhile, Finland is voted the happiest country in the world, which doesn't connect to their genetic trait of bad BDNF, should cause mood dysregulation. People from Finland have the highest use of sauna per capita of the world, which when you get into the right duration of sauna, surges BDNF in your brain and causes them to have as if they had the good version of the gene, which is why they do it so much, because when they don't feel good. Like my mood is off. Like what happened? Oh yeah, I missed the sauna. They don't know why, but that's what's going on. So why does that happen? When you're in a sauna for long enough, the first 5-10 minutes are like, this is nice, this is good. And then it's like, this is hell, I got to get out of here. That's when the magic starts. And 10 minutes of that, your body can't understand what this stress is. And it actually thinks you're dying. And because it thinks you're dying and it doesn't know why you're dying, it releases something called a heat shock protein to go regenerate everything it can possibly regenerate, including surging BDNF in your brain, repairing the heart, replening your gut, like everything, right? And so this is why with the traditional sauna, you have data around 60% reduction in Alzheimer's because BDNF surges and there's a repair, 40% reduction in cardiovascular disease from the traditional sauna, because traditional sauna is a surface level heat that is far more stressful to the body. So it gets you there faster and more intensely. The red light is a deeper subcutaneous heat, which you don't feel as much, which is not as good for what we just said, but much better for mitochondrial function, anti-aging type function. So as opposed to disease prevention, it's more about cellular energy, recovery. You might find mood regulation the next day. So if you do both, great, right? It's not that you need both, but they just have slightly different benefits, right?
How about heat and cold?
Oh, yeah. Amazing. Yeah. So to alternate that shock. Now, when it comes to cold, heat, sauna, anybody go do it. Cold, you have to be careful.
Yeah.
Right. So cold, there's a gene pathway called UCP1 that regulates thermoregulation. And when you're not doing well there, you might be okay the first few times using that cold plunge. But if you do it consistently over time, you'll start to gain weight. You'll start to get neurotic. You'll start to get anxiety. Because again, too much stress, body thinks there's something wrong here, like battle, and it gets you into a fight or flight state. If you have good thermal regulation, it doesn't matter. You can do it every day if you want. The other big consideration is hormones, especially for women. When you're more estrogen dominant, even for men, some men are more estrogen dominant, your body treats stress as a more worry thing. I'm going to worry. I want to protect the tribe, look out for problems versus warrior, go fight, right? So if that's the case, then that constant cold and stress will cause you to retain weight. Even though in the first few days you burned it, it's going to start to do the opposite. So understanding hormones if you're more estrogen dominant and just listening to your body. If over time it's too much stress, it is too much stress. You have to listen. For some people, it's calming and zenning. For some people, but that contrast of hot and cold, we've seen, we work with a lot of NHL hockey players. I'm in Toronto, so there's a lot of NHL training that happens there. So one of the things we'll do with them is they'll have a full therapy day where morning, 30 minutes of sauna, 5 minutes of cold, 30 minutes of sauna. They come back in the evening, they do it again. 30 minutes sauna. So it's a whole day. And they do that for 4 weeks and their testosterone surges to the roof. Massive without anything illegal with it's just a massive testosterone jump because of the stress, because of the warrior genes that get turned on.
I first started hearing about transcriptions from Thomas DeLauer.
Yep.
And, Thomas is somebody, it's an animal with working out. You got a chance to work out with him. I worked out with him. And he's kind of always on the front lines of finding out about these new companies that have cool things. But I didn't really realize that Transcriptions was the first company to put out methylene blue. And now look at methylene blue. It's so popular. It's everywhere.
It's one of those things. If you guys listen to this podcast, I'm very iffy with the supplements that I take. Because there's a lot of shady stuff out there.
You got to be careful.
The great thing about Transcriptions is that when people want to get methylene blue, usually they'll go on Amazon, they're going on these other sites. It's not third-party tested. It's not dosed. A lot of people end up with toxicity from the blue that they get because there's no testing of it. Transcriptions, they have third-party testing for the products. It's dosed, so you know easily what exact dose of methylene blue you're getting in each troche. So you're not making some type of mistake. There's not going to be anything in it. It's safe.
You can have it dissolve and you can turn your whole world blue if you want, or you can just swallow it. They have two different types of methylene blue. They have one that is, I believe, dosed at 16 milligrams, and they have another one that's dosed at 50 milligrams. So make sure you check the milligrams. I don't recommend anybody start at 50 milligrams, but the 16 I feel is very safe. You can also score the troches and you can break them up into smaller bits.
Yeah, that's what I do.
And in addition to that, on top of the methylene blue, they have a lot of other great products and stuff as well. They got stuff for sleep. They got stuff for calming down, all kinds of things.
I gotta say, I use it about 2 or 3 times a week. I use it before jiu-jitsu. And the cool thing that I've noticed, and I've paid attention to this over the past few months, is that after sessions, I don't feel as tired. So it's almost like I've become more efficient with my with just the way I use my body in these hard sessions of grappling. And it's like, cool, that means that, I mean, I could go for longer if I wanted to, and my recovery is better affected. It's pretty great.
I know Dr. Scott Schur, we had him on the podcast, and he talked quite a bit about how he recommends Methylene Blue to a lot of the athletes that he works with.
Yeah.
And they're seeing some profound impacts. And one of the things I've heard about it is that it can enhance red light. So those of you doing red light therapy, or those of you that have some opportunities to get out into some good sunlight, it might be a good idea to try some Methylene Blue before you go out on your walk or run outside or whatever activity it is that you're going to do outside.
And this stuff is great, but please, like, first off, they have that stuff for staying calm. They have stuff for sleep. But remember, this stuff isn't a substitution for sleep. This isn't a substitution for taking care of your nutrition. This is supposed to be an add-on to all the things that we already should be doing. And it's going to make things so much better if you're doing everything else too.
And I think this is just a little different too than just adding some magnesium to your diet. I think this is a little different than... Yeah. You know, treat these things appropriately. Make sure you do some of your own research. But
if you're taking medications, SSRIs, you better talk to your doctor first. Don't be popping these things.
And if you're taking any medications at all, it'd be good to double, triple, quadruple check and make sure that you're safe. Transcriptions has a lot of great things that you need, so go and check out their website when you have the opportunity. Strength is never weakness, weakness never strength. Catch you guys later. With your research in DNA, you were mentioning like how you can tell so many different things about a person. It's been my understanding that it seems like DNA research hasn't done that much quite yet, but it seems like we're now at the point where it really is having a large impact on a lot of things. What are some things that are happening right now that can really move the needle for somebody if they are to get some DNA testing? And maybe what are some things that might be coming down the pipeline in the future?
So genetic research was broken because unlike blood work or any other type of test, you only need to do it once, which as a business sucks, right? So all these investors that funded all the research are like, now what? So they started becoming data selling businesses, which is, I'll sell you a cheap widget toy test, right? But on the back end, I'm selling your data for 10x what you paid for the test. And so when you do that, the true customer in that equation is the data buyer, which means the test is designed for what they want, not what you need. And so you have all these underwhelming outcomes of people saying, I did it, but it didn't change my life, right? But it changed their life. They just now made a drug or something, right? So that changed recently because and this is part of the research I did, which is studying, applying genetics functionally. So just like we said earlier, where medicine is diagnose and prescribe, here's what your disease is called, here's a pill you need. And functional medicine is, why did you get sick? That's what happened to genetics, which is, how do we find a gene that equals a disease? And then how do we make a pill? And that would be very valuable versus, how do we use genes to figure out the reason people got sick so they can prevent it or reverse it? And that's what functional genomics is. That's what we do. But that science didn't even exist even a few years ago, right? Billions of dollars of research spent all to find these needle in the haystack solutions for rare genetic traits. But now you can actually go into your pathways, your hormones, your neurochemicals, your metabolism, your sleep, all these unique pathways, and look at the map and read your human instruction manual and say, oh, this part of the map is broken. That's why when I went on the keto diet, like my friends did, I didn't feel good, but they did, right? Because my genetic ability to actually process fats doesn't work. Or this part's broken, so when I tried being a vegan, I lost all my muscle mass. I actually don't make the enzymes to break down plant proteins. So that was the one thing that was messing me up. So now we can look at it functionally to solve problems as opposed to just masking a disease, right? So, but that didn't exist even a few years ago.
And like you were saying on our walk, you were saying the massive thing is just the interpretation of the data that you're getting from the DNA and from the blood work. I think we're, just at the very beginning stages of like figuring out even what to do with blood work.
Yeah.
There's a lot of great people that read blood work and they have great information, but I think over time that information is going to get better and better because we've only been testing people's blood for, like, it hasn't been that long on a large scale. And now it's starting to get on a larger and larger scale, and it will hopefully continue to improve.
Yeah, the blood work, also the way you're taught to interpret it is, the question is, do you need a pill or not? That's literally it, right? Here's the marker, here's the range. If it's here, you need a pill. That's it. That's
your electrolytes are off. So here's, electrolyte supplements.
Yeah. Versus this range, what causes the needle to move? And by the way, this range you might think is not connected to all these, but it is. And downstream 2 years from now, these are going to start to change. Right? The body is resilient and will fight. So it will slowly get to the problem stage. And it just doesn't, there's no switch that you turn on to equal the disease. So blood work, you know, there's a guy named Dr. Tom O'Brien, who's one of the pioneers of the functional medicine movement. And he was on the board of the IFM, Institute for Functional Medicine. And he did this experiment where he took a bunch of his patients and he would send the same person's blood to the same lab under 2 or 3 different names. And he would get 2 or 3 different results for blood, which is meant to be certain, which kind of tells me the blood work model is intentionally designed to keep someone stuck in the healthcare loop of needing pills. When you have the largest labs that have the best equipment, that have all the quality control, giving you 3 different outcomes for the same person, which is supposed to be such an easy thing to measure.
Why were the outcomes 3 different outcomes from blood work done at the same time?
At the same time from the same person. So the question is it intentional? Right? Isn't it profitable for someone to get stuck versus getting cured? If prescriptions work, why do you need to keep taking them? Like, why do you need to refill a prescription? Why is it something that goes on forever? And so that business is designed to keep you stuck. So versus we then take them into a private blood lab, right? That's not the big labs. And all of a sudden the blood work actually matches how they look, their phenotype, right? And then you can actually solve the problem. So this model is, do I need a pill or not? Versus testing stuff like your gut, testing stuff like toxins, testing stuff like your hormone levels, and then knowing what's actually the pathway level, broken, fix it. That was the precursor to the disease. So this had to go wrong first for the disease to happen. So if you fix this, the root, where's the disease? It's not possible, right?
Do you see some commonalities within like a race or ethnicity? Or is that separate from DNA?
Definitely commonalities. There's a phenomenon called epistasis, which is when one gene affects another gene. So for example, anyone that's South Asian or East Asian that's listening, if you go get blood work or genetic testing done, you might be told you have great markers for hypertension and blood pressure. And the marker for you has the exact opposite meaning for what it means for a Western European white male, which is where medical research is done. Yeah. Because of a phenomenon called epistasis, right? Even during COVID, there's a gene called ACE, which allows your body to actually, it's the tool that COVID uses to make you sick. So think of it as like the receptor that allows COVID to deposit its RNA in your cell and make you sick. So there's certain ethnicities, and no surprise, Hispanic, African-American, what was the third one? There's I think it was Swiss, a very specific European nation that of the 61 receptor sites on this gene had the majority of them expressing. So much easier to get sick from COVID. Versus other ethnicities, like I think it was Ashkenazi Jew and a couple other ethnicities that only had like 2 or 3 of the sites. So even that one nuance, so this one gene determines how sick you get from COVID, how quickly. And which is why you see, if you look at ethnicity, outcomes were different. Right?
When you see the DNA, can you tell if someone is like a explosive athlete, or if they maybe have like more type 2 muscle fibers or something like? I know it's not actually literally showing up, but with what you're reading, can you kind of assume that or be able to tell stuff like that?
You can tell, I think that, but even more functional things like hormones they're your reproductive signals, but they're also your physical form. So if I have hormones, I can figure out why Kim Kardashian looks like this and Kendall Jenner looks like this, right? They're sisters, but the genetics of their hormones, they had different dads, so they're getting different signals. And so we can predict. So my kids, I have them in the right sports because I know who they're going to become. I didn't need to wait to see. Like I know one kid is going to be a big burly football player, so that's what he does. And the other one plays basketball because he's like wiry and thin, right? And they're actually becoming that as they age. So the hormone is a signal that tells your body how to form. It also tells us how we respond to movement. So there's some people where we work with, again, these athletes, and we'll tell them they're not meant to sort of do the typical bro workout of your 3-4 sets, split your body parts. Some of them just need to work till failure a couple times a week. They make a lot of what's called dihydrotestosterone, DHT. So they need muscle exhaustion. They were designed to be agricultural on the farm, like working all day, right? That's what they received. And some are more androgenized, the clean testosterone, that need more like time under tension, like yoga, Pilates type stuff, the stressing the muscle slowly. And that's what they respond to the best. The big one is mitochondrial function. There was a very well-known tennis player that we were working with, like a Wimbledon, US Open level guy, who while in his career, so what is that, like early 30s, late 20s type of age, right? Got diagnosed with a cholesterol issue and was told to take a pill. He's like, this makes no sense. Best food, all I do is exercise. Why would I have this problem? So he was sent to us saying, here's this genetic research company. Maybe they can figure out your genetic problem, right? And it doesn't work that way, but we did figure out the genetics, what caused it. It was not a single thing. Here's what it was. There's a superoxide dismutase pathway in your body, which in short drives mitochondrial function. So as you take in food and you take in oxygen, your body combines those at the mitochondria to make energy. When you use oxygen to make energy, you make something called an oxidant. And an oxidant is like a smoke, a byproduct. You're meant to get it out of the cell and pee it out, sweat it out, poop it out. If this gene doesn't work so well, it doesn't leave the cell. So now picture a tennis player who's constantly under high cardiovascular output, taking in far more oxygen, oxidative stress, right? That has a bad gene pathway there that doesn't remove the oxidant, starts to choke the cell. So there's no recovery. Where do you have the highest density of mitochondria per cell in your body is in the cardiovascular system. And so he started to have this inflammation in his cardiac tissue. Now we have this gene marker that tells us, here's your arteries, these tubes. The inner lining of the tube, it's called the endothelium. It's like a single cell lining, right? I can predict with your DNA how resilient this is. If it's like stainless steel or paper thin. So he had the paper thin version. He had bad mitochondrial function, could not clear the oxidants, was in oxidative stress all the time because of his career, with bad hardware, started to get inflamed far more earlier than it does for most people. And the response to inflammation here is your body will actually send cholesterol to fix the inflammation, right? That's what, it's a very beneficial hormone that repairs broken tissue. When the cholesterol gets here and meets the free radical, the oxidant, right? It starts to damage the cholesterol molecule itself. And then it builds up, and you have a doctor saying, you need a pill. Like, where's this plaque coming from, right? And really, we could have, at very step one, have said, okay, go ahead, be a tennis player, but you can't do it without supporting your mitochondria pre and post training. And you can't do it without supporting your endothelium, which there's nutrients that do that. There's a company called Arterosil that makes a product that will fix this. There's a company called Cardio Miracle that makes a product that will fix this. There's peptides you can take that will do this. Then go ahead and make that choice of being a tennis player. But don't, you're going to end up with cholesterolemia in your early 30s.
Have you seen certain supplements work like extremely well for some people, like in accordance to their DNA? Much like the food response and so on?
There's a question of if biology is broken, some gene doesn't work, there's usually a nutrient needed to upregulate it, to make it to what it should have been. And that's what your ancestors probably did. And now you're not doing that, right? So yes, there's a prescription that comes from your DNA, like here's the exact things you need. But there's also certain jobs you're doing really well where it becomes redundant. And so, for example, NAD, everyone's doing NAD IVs, right? Yeah. So I think it was the Kardashian or somebody, Justin Bieber's wife, they're on these drips, and now everybody wants to do it, right? So there's a gene pathway called FOXO3, which drives your cellular senescence, regeneration, and repair. And if you're already doing that well, and then you add NAD to the mix, you might be overdosing, which is why some scientists say high dose NAD is linked to cancer, right? For some people. For some people, it's not that big of a problem. So yeah, there's a question of DNA will prescribe what you need, but DNA will also tell you what you absolutely don't need and your body's already doing a good job with, which is waste of money and redundant.
Something that I think has gained a lot of popularity with, Gen Z is smoking weed. And since you work with so many people, is it as harmless as people think? Is there something that people need to be thinking about if there's someone who smokes?
Well, harmless in terms of clean compared to things like alcohol and other drugs, right? Cigarettes,
yeah. It's not harmless, but people are putting it forward as like not being really that dangerous.
Yeah.
There can be some negative mental health negatives, etc.
Yeah.
But is there anything that people aren't thinking about when it comes to that?
So the real big one is in certain people with a certain genetic profile, it can cause schizophrenia,
Yeah.
right? It literally direct cause it. So, but that's a unique nuance for some people, but we can predict that. If you have your DNA, you'll know, right?
You can predict that.
Yeah, you can predict that. Yeah. It's what we don't understand, however, is unlike how we've mapped the genome, we've mapped the gut microbiome, we haven't mapped the cannabinoid system so well. So we don't understand the receptors and how things are nuanced. And so that little bit, there's still, the science is very early stage, right? So those receptors aren't understood so well. But yeah, schizophrenia is one. And also genetically, some people have suboptimal respiratory health, right? Their ability to actually use retinol, which is like an animal form of vitamin A, to actually build respiratory tissue. The genetics of how well you filter and detoxify at the respiratory level. That's also variable for different people. So if you don't do a good job there, you probably have respiratory inflammation already, right? Which you would have experienced at an older age, but add that to the mix, and for that person, it's going to lead to respiratory issues. Right?
You're hitting us with way more information than I was expecting. You never know, like, you know, when you have somebody that's proficient on Instagram or YouTube or something like that, you never know how many like layers deep they're going to know stuff. But thank you so much for sharing all that today. Where can people find you?
Well, Instagram is the best place. You know, I host a lot of events and master classes for the people who want to learn more for free. So go to Instagram, register for a class, and just keep learning.
Do you have the DNA tests at you? Is that at your website? Or is that other?
That's so. I started the DNA company as a research company. Me being a Canadian, trying to navigate FDA and the insurance companies, like, just gave me vertigo. So we eventually merged with the telemedicine company. I don't run it anymore. I still founder, own my shares, all that stuff. I just don't run it. I now just serve sort of athletes, celebs on their sort of personalized health plans. But go to Instagram, register for one of our webinars, and I'll teach you how we can use your DNA to help you.
Strength is never a weakness. Weakness is never strength. Catch you guys later. Bye.